learners, this is Dr. Ruchika Kuba, Director School of Health Sciences, Indira Gandhi National Open University, and your course coordinator for this course on lifestyle and non-communicable diseases. You have already learned about many non-communicable diseases, their risk factors and the preventive measures that can be adopted. In this session, we shall discuss a common non-communicable disease, that is stroke. The incidence of stroke is increasing, and for discussing that, today we have with us Dr. Rosmi Josh, Assistant Professor, Department of Medicine, Hamdard Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Welcome, Dr. Rosmi.
Thank you, ma'am, for having me here.
Before we begin the session, I would like you to tell our learners that what are the objectives of this session, what can they expect to be able to know after they have seen this session.
By the end of this session, we will expect our learner that he is able to understand that what is stroke or how to define stroke, then what are the risk factors that lead to stroke, early identification of those symptoms, and to discuss measures or lifestyle changes that will prevent us from having stroke.
So, let us begin our session with, as you said, you should be able to define stroke. So, what is stroke?
Stroke or brain attack, it is actually when there is a cutoff or disruption of supply to the brain. This disruption of supply, blood supply to the brain, will result in a decrease in oxygen or glucose that is essential for the survival of the brain cells. And if they do not receive this blood glucose or oxygen, then those cells will die. In medical terms, stroke can also be called as a cerebrovascular accident. And if stroke is not identified early, then there is a chance of permanent damage and it can cause disability or it can also cause death.
So, you said that it's a kind of an attack, so brain attack. What are the different types of brain attacks that can happen?
Okay. So, as I mentioned that the stroke is a disruption of the blood supply to the brain. So, there are two ways in which you can disrupt the blood supply. So, one is when there is a clot which is present inside the blood vessel which is present in the brain, or a blood vessel which is going towards the brain, or sometimes the clot can form in some other part of our body and then travel to the brain. So, if such is the scenario where we are looking at a stroke because of a clot, then it is called as an ischemic stroke. The second scenario is you disrupt the blood supply by rupture or leaking from the blood vessel in the brain. So, that is called as a hemorrhagic stroke, and the most common cause of a hemorrhagic stroke is a very high blood pressure.
So, basically we want to say that because the blood supply doesn't come to the brain,
Yes.
because of that, that part of the brain probably dies.
Yes.
So, because it dies, the function that that part of the brain was doing was not able to do that
Yes.
function, and that is called stroke.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. But there is something that we often hear the doctors also telling that is transient ischemic attack.
Yeah.
Now, how is it different? Is it stroke or is it different? What is it exactly?
Okay. Transient ischemic attack, or in day-to-day language, you can say that it is a mini stroke. The name itself tells us that this is a temporary phenomenon. It will happen for a while and then it will improve. So, what happens? The blood supply of the brain is disrupted. This disruption is because of a clot, and this is temporary. So, what do I mean by saying that it is temporary? It means to say that this dysfunction will be there for a few minutes, probably a few hours, but less than 24 hours. And though it is not technically a stroke, however, it is a warning that there is a chance that the person might develop a stroke, and this tells us that you should seek medical care.
So, as a layman, how will I know that I am getting a transient ischemic attack? What you are telling is from a medical term that the blood supply is cut off for some time. How will I know that my brain blood supply has got cut off?
Okay. The symptoms and the signs which come with transient ischemic attack is exactly similar to what you have in stroke. So, there is no difference, but the only thing is the person will say that for a moment I had a weakness, or I had a drooping, or there was some change, but then after a while this has disappeared and he will be absolutely normal. So, that prompts us that something abnormal has happened and it requires us to seek medical attention.
Okay. So, can we also know that, are we going to have more chances of getting a stroke? If we come to know, maybe we can have some preventive measures. So, who are more likely to get stroke? Are there any risk factors?
Definitely. So, like all non-communicable diseases, there are risk factors, and these risk factors can again be divided into two. One which is modifiable, that is we can change it, and then the other is non-modifiable, which is not in our hands, So let us first look at what is modifiable. So the most important thing is a very high blood pressure. So this is something which we can take care of. Then uncontrolled blood sugar. All metabolic disorders are known to cause non-communicable diseases. So blood sugar levels are also important. So an uncontrolled blood sugar level. Then you have high cholesterol, which is the talk of the town these days, ki cholesterol levels are rising and the blood reports are abnormal. There is a diet which is rich in saturated fat, very high in saturated fat, trans fat or cholesterol, and being overweight. Not just obesity is a risk factor, but being overweight predisposes you to become obese. So BMI or a body mass index more than 23 kg per meter square, that itself will lead you to having a risk factor of developing stroke. And if somebody is obese, then the physical activity, it will automatically come down. So lack of an exercise, that itself is a risk factor for stroke. Then too much alcohol intake, smoking. These are habits which people have developed over a period of time, or it was there from long, but they contribute to stroke. Then heart diseases like valve diseases, there are valves in the heart, so that can be abnormal, or the pumping action of the heart is abnormal, so that can lead to stroke. Then irregular heartbeat, or in medical terms, we all would have heard about arrhythmia or a rhythm disorder of the heart, so that can cause stroke. Then blood clotting disorders, in which we would have heard about ki some people will have spontaneously clot formation in the body, so that can cause stroke. Then you have something like oral birth control pills that are known to cause, and hormone replacement therapy. These are factors which are modifiable. That is, we intervene in these things and we can avoid or prevent.
So this is a very long list, and I think also most of the list is something, you know, which we have modifiable risk factors for many of the non-communicable diseases which we have been discussing in our previous sessions. But yes, there are few things which are very different, and I think, like you said, about blood clotting disorders, irregular heartbeat, heart diseases, oral birth control pills, these are very specific to stroke. And so these are also something which are a matter of concern, because so many of us, especially hormone replacement therapy and oral birth control pills, are being taken by many women nowadays. So probably they need to caution themselves and probably have regular checkups and, you know, take care of the other risk factors which may make them prone to develop.
Definitely. The importance of knowing that oral contraceptive pills and hormone replacement therapy is a risk factor is because there is a general perception that stroke happens in an elderly. But if you look at the oral contraceptive use and the hormone replacement, that is being done by the younger generation. So an idea or a thought should always be there. It is not exclusive to the elderly. The disease stroke can happen in a young. So knowing this is also knowing that there is a chance. So you take caution, more important.
So you spoke that there are certain modifiable and certain non-modifiable. Now, which are the non-modifiable risk factors? Are they the same which are there for any NCDs, or are they also a little different?
Most of the non-modifiable risk factors are almost same for all the non-communicable diseases. The most important being age. As you age, the risk for any disease increases. So is for stroke, elderly or age more than 65, that predisposes. Then like every disease, certain diseases are more common in men and some are more common in women. So gender predilection for stroke, we say that men have more chances of stroke. Then family history. If somebody has a history that their family member has had stroke, then there is a possibility that next in the family can have a chance of developing stroke. Certain races or ethnicity. So like African Americans have a higher risk of stroke. These things we cannot modify, but it is there. Then there is another thing which we should know is history of migrainous headaches. So if somebody is having history of migrainous headaches and they are on treatment, so such symptoms if they develop, so it should not be ignored.
Now, what exactly happens in a stroke? We've read about learnt about the risk factors. Now let us come to, you know, how we can identify as a lay person that it is a stroke, and what do we experience or what happens exactly?
So what do we expect, or what do we need to see, or what does a patient complain when he says that he has problem and we say that there is stroke? So the first complaint is which will be said is there is weakness. This weakness can just be a heaviness, or there can be an inability to use your arms on or leg on one side of the body. It can be a weakness of your face, where the person can say that it seems that it is deviated, or there is some facial drooping or asymmetry on your face. Then there can be a difficulty in speaking. So the person is able to understand whatever we are trying to tell. But when he's articulating or trying to verbalize, the speech will not be there. He will not be able to bring out his response. Or this speech difficulty can be in the form that he is able to speak fluently, but not appropriately. You're asking a question and he's answering something else. So,
Okay.
so the understanding or the judgment is being affected. Sometimes the people will say that there is visual disturbance. There is difficulty in seeing in one eye or in both eyes. Some people will say that there is double vision. When I look at an object, it seems that there are two objects present. Or some people describe it as a curtain falling right in front of their eyes. So that can be a visual symptom. Then you have sudden behavioral change. And what do you mean by a behavioral change? They will be increasingly agitated out of the norm. The person will be a normal person with a normal demeanor, but all of a sudden there is an increase in agitation. There is loss of balance. There can be swaying to one side or not able to walk. Sometimes there can be sudden, incomplete or a complete loss of sensations. What do you mean by dimming of sensation or loss of sensation? They can say that there is a visual abnormality. Some people will say ki hearing, I'm not able to hear well. Or taste, sometimes people will be not able to perceive touch, or there can be a change in smell also. Then apart from that, what we will have is a fainting attack. They will be all right and all of a sudden they pass out and they fall. Then there can be memory issues. Patient will have a loss of memory, in medical terms what we call as amnesia. Or it can be just a confusion or a disorientation to the place where they are. Others can present with complaints of a sudden and a very severe headache with nausea or vomiting. And sometimes it can be so dramatic that patients can have a seizure or a fit. So these are the symptoms which can happen to a person when he is developing a stroke.
And all these symptoms come suddenly, or is it a small, very slow progression, and that is what it happens? How can it be both?
It can be both. There may not be any warning sign. It can just be all of a sudden they have passed out and dropped, or they were all right and then they had an agitation, or they were all right and they had a seizure. Or sometimes it is like when they are having a weakness, it starts developing, there is a numbness or a heaviness, and then slowly
it progresses.
And then they will not be able to use that part of the body. So it can be either ways. We cannot guess ki who will have what.
So do you have any warning signs also before a stroke?
They need not always have a warning sign.
Okay.
Sometimes it is just all of a sudden, or sometimes it is a heaviness, a slight
Slow
uneasiness,
progression.
slow progression. So that way it can present.
Is there any way in which we can identify stroke early?
Yeah. So to identify early, everybody needs an acronym or a way to remember and do it fast. So we can remember as an acronym B FAST. So B means balance. So if somebody is having a loss of balance, inability to walk, gait disturbance, they are swaying to one side. So that is the B, B FAST. Then E. E is for eyes. There is a sudden visual loss, or there is dimming of vision. You are seeing two things at one time, double vision, or there is a curtain falling right in front of your eye. So B FAST. E is eyes. Then you have F for face. So what do you want to see in the face? There is, when the person smiles or talks, you will look at the patient and find that there is some drooping, or there is some deviation. So that itself suggests that there is a facial paralysis. A, arms. So ask the patient to lift the arm, or the patient, when he tries to lift both arms, the weaker side starts to fall down or droop down. Then you have speech. So as I mentioned, there is a difficulty in speaking, or sometimes they are able to speak, but what they are talking is not making sense. So that can be a thing. And the T of B FAST is the time. When you notice such a symptom in a person, note the time, and that is the time you should act fast and quick and take the person to the emergency. This knowing the time is important, because if you reach the hospital early, you treat the disease early, then the chances of developing a morbidity or a disability decreases. So timely intervention.
Precipitating into a paralysis can be much avoided if we quickly discover it, and I mean the possibility is there.
Yeah,
we can't
definitely.
be 100% sure regarding
Definitely.
that. Okay, so now we do take a person who we suspect is having a stroke or has had a stroke, and we go to the hospital. Now what does the doctor do when he comes to know that, from your history and from whatever you tell them, that they have had these symptoms?
Okay. After taking the history, the first thing that can is done is measurement of a blood pressure, as we already mentioned about the risk factors. So it is a very easy thing that you can immediately tie a sphygmomanometer, you can measure the blood pressure. Then we measure the blood sugar levels of the patient. A panel of blood investigations are sent, and what do these investigations involve? We send to identify the cholesterol levels, functions of the kidney and the liver. Then blood clotting disorders have to be identified. So tests for clotting disorders are sent. That will be sent according to the age and presentation of the patient and the risk factors which we get from the history. And ultimately, what is more important is imaging studies. So what is the imaging study? It is a CT scan or an MRI. They are images of the brain. So in an emergency, the moment a person comes, the first thing that is done is when you are suspecting stroke, after doing the above things as we have mentioned. So you get a CT scan done. It will identify whether there is a bleeding or whether there is a clot. So the treatment differs for both the conditions. So the need for getting a imaging study done.
So I think once the patient has reached the hospital, he should be well taken care of. But before we get a stroke, I mean, as a lay public person, how can we prevent stroke? You have told us all the risk factors.
Yes,
so how can we take care that, you know, even if we are high risk, we don't get stroke? How can we control ourselves?
Definitely, there are always ways to prevent it. So the first and foremost thing that we can do is a change in our diet. So advice is to reduce the salt content of our food. So we will say that not more than 2.3 grams. So now question arises, how do we measure 2.3 grams? So it is like half a teaspoon. So the salt intake should not be more than this. You can
maybe the hidden salts also can be avoided, like the pickles and the chutneys, and maybe salt over the salads.
Definitely.
And papads.
Yes, definitely. So the extra or added or preserved salty food can be avoided. Then we have to avoid fatty and processed food and sugary drinks. So it is a fast moving age and age where takeouts are very commonly being done, and everybody, because of their busy schedule, they want to have ready to eat meals. So they should be avoided. Burgers, fried food, sugary carbonated drinks, they should be avoided. What one can do is one should eat more fruits, more vegetables, 4 to 5 servings of fruits. Then whole grain, that is rice, wheat, and low fat dairy can be taken. And the most important thing is how you cook that food. You can boil, you can bake, you can roast instead of frying. So that way dietary intervention will help in preventing the risk factors. The next what we can do is we can go in for exercise. What amount of exercise should one do is the question. So we advise that one person should be doing around 30 minutes per day for 3 to 5 days a week exercise. This exercise should be moderate intensity. So the question is, what is moderate intensity exercise? So when a person is doing a moderate intensity exercise, there will be an increase or a quicker breathing. There will be sweating, which will generally start by 5 to 10 minutes of your starting the exercise, but you are not drenched in sweat. Then there will be, the person will be able to talk while doing that exercise. They will not be able to sing. So somebody who's habit of singing, they can say that I am able to talk, but I am not able to hum or sing along. Then how do you do those exercises, or which exercises are moderate intensity? So brisk walking, it is the easiest way because you do not need an equipment for it. You can do a brisk walk, you can go for cycling, swimming is good. Then apart from that, strength training can be done, like resistance band exercises. People can lift weights, but not very heavy weights. So according to your physical capacity, the exercise should be there. Then
it's a very nice thing you've told, actually, how to identify that it is a moderate exercise, because otherwise it's very difficult to tell. But those tips that you told, that you can talk and not sing, those are very nice tips. I think for anybody can identify whether they're doing a moderate exercise or a simple or serious exercise.
One thing more I would like to add here is, when we do a moderate intensity exercise, we say 30 minutes. The moment we say 30 minutes, people will say that we are busy. So we cannot identify 30 minutes at a stretch. So for them it is ki you can do 10 to 15 minutes of exercise
at one time.
At one time. You can space the 30 minutes throughout the day. So that is also a way about going it. We can say that now we are not busy, we can find time for ourselves.
Sure, that's true.
Then the next thing that we are supposed to do is lose weight. So as we mentioned, obesity or being overweight is a risk factor for almost all the non-communicable diseases. So we need to lose weight. Now someone has decided that today I am going to try to lose weight. So one should understand that the capacity, individual's health and his capacity should be taken into consideration. There is no fixed size for all. Everybody will work according to their body and their capacities to go in for an exercise. How much should I lose weight so that it helps in preventing stroke? So advisable is you can lose half a kg to 1 kg in a month. It can be slower for some people, but it is all right. Our aim is that we bring down our BMI to less than 23. So that helps it. You can achieve your aim slow at your own pace. The only thing is slow and steady will win the race.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is limiting alcohol. So the best advice is do not drink. But if somebody cannot avoid it, then do it in moderation. Excess of everything is bad. So is for alcohol. And for men and women, the quantity of alcohol differs. For a woman, there should be less than 1 drink a day. And a man should not go beyond 2 drinks per day. So that is how we will decide the quantity of alcohol in a man. Then next thing is smoking. So smoking is altogether no. Stop smoking. If you have never smoked, don't bring it into a habit of yours. But if you smoke, so now does stopping help? Definitely. It is not reducing, it is stopping that is going to help. So quitting smoking is very important. And when we talk of this addiction or a habit which we have formed, if it is difficult, it is good and advisable to seek medical help. So for both quitting alcohol and quitting smoking, medical help is always available. Then the other thing is, after knowing everything and the risk factor, we have already said ki people with high blood pressure or hypertension, somebody with a diabetes, somebody with a very high cholesterol level. So we know the disease now. So what can we do? We can treat that disease. So timely visiting your doctor, following the prescription, coming back for re-checkup and follow-ups, that helps ki, how we are going to change the course of our medications. So that will help us in preventing stroke. And most important, if somebody in the family has had stroke, then screening for the family members should be done. So if some elderly has had, so we have to retrospect, inspect ourselves whether we are following a healthy diet. We can change things in our diet and family life, because change is required in the entire family. It is not possible for one person to start changing their diet and the others not following.
So you have told us a lot of things about this common condition, stroke. Now, what would be your take-home message for our learners?
So as the old adage goes, prevention is better than cure. So is true for stroke. And the most important thing is, when you know something, you see it happening. So knowing the warning signs and knowing the symptoms of stroke is very important. And the moment you identify them, then instead of no, it is going to pass off, that attitude has to change. We have to seek early medical help. It is said that if you reach the hospital early, that is within 3 hours, then the treatment will happen fast and it will prevent morbidity and mortality, as well as the disability which happens with the stroke. So after treatment also there is improvement, but there will be some residual disability left. So that can be prevented.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rosmi. You have been really explained all the conditions of stroke so explicitly, and we have learnt about the risk factors, we have learnt about how to identify stroke, and what even you gave a little brief about what the doctors will do in the hospital, and of course how we must modify our lifestyle so that the chances of stroke get much reduced, even if we are at a high risk. So I think our learners must have learned a lot of things, and now they can apply this to their own life, and they can also advise others, as you said, the family members and the community people.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.